In this portion of the presentation, I'd like to go over some tips and reminders that will help you achieve success here at Baylor. So where I want to start is we've put together this list and we're calling this tips from the experts. And in this case, the experts are undergraduate students that have been successful in our degree programs at Baylor. So first on the list, and I'm happy to see this here, is spend time on campus and engage in activities. A lot of times, I think the perception of these majors is that you have to put your head down and just study all the time and never come out of your room. That's not actually a great formula for success. We need you to develop yourself as a whole person, not just worry about the academics, although the academics are important. The other thing I want to tell you about is the second thing on the list, which is to take advantage of free tutoring on campus. So here's my little speech about tutoring. I know that there's a perception in high school, for example, that maybe tutoring is for marginal students, not for the good students. Well, let me tell you, I think tutoring is for all students, all right? And so some of our best students, what they do is they use tutoring in a way to efficiently complete their studies, all right? So for example, let's say, I teach circuits. Let's say I gave a circuits assignment and a student would be able to take the circuits assignment, meet with their tutor, and as they work through the problems, if they run across some kind of obstacle or get going down the wrong path, the job of the tutor is to redirect and help you come to a place where you can study more efficiently. All right, so from there, the next part of the story is after you've completed some tutoring and done well in classes, then the next step is you get to become the tutor, and you understand things deeply if you teach them. So it's a great model to have. Okay, the other thing on the list from the experts is to form and participate in study groups. It really helps in these majors to stay connected and use all the resources you can, including study groups. The fourth thing on the list here is called master the material. And so what happens in these majors is that the material tends to build upon itself, right? So you need one subject matter from a prerequisite that builds onto the next course. And so it's not just a matter of going through the motions and doing the homework assignments. You need to learn from your experience and master the material. Next up on the list is connect with faculty. I'm really happy to see this here because the faculty, we're here to engage with you. We want to see you develop, and the best way to do that is to stay connected with us through office hours and hallway conversations, and perhaps even participating in some research, shared research activities. Another tip, manage your time well. Okay, I think this is one of the most important things that you need to come to terms with right away. You're going to be taking 5 courses. It's not going to be as structured as high school might have been. You have to decide when do you study for this course, when do you study for that course, how do you get this one assignment due in the face of having an exam in another subject the next week. So you really have to stay on top of it. Our recommendation is to sort of treat it as a full-time job where you schedule your day and you manage when you're going to study for different activities and plan for that in your schedule. It's just not possible to be successful by taking a strategy of I'm just going to cram at the last minute for things. Okay, the items in red here I've added to this list of tips from the experts. So the first thing that I've added is the item sleep wisely. Okay, so you may have heard stories about college where a student might brag about pulling an all-nighter, studying for an exam or doing a project. So in general, that doesn't work out very well. In fact, I've had students that have fallen asleep during an exam because they've spent all night studying. Obviously, that doesn't work out all that well for them. The next thing on the list is to check your Baylor email. So one of the things that you'll get in your Baylor email is a weekly newsletter that tells you about scholarship opportunities and internship opportunities and opportunities for student organizational meetings where there's free food. There's good reasons to check that newsletter. but you'll also get messaging through your Baylor email about things that have to do with academics. Many of our courses are run through Canvas, which is a content management system. And so, for example, sometimes I'll send out an email to students on the week of an exam saying, hey, I've taken a look at the materials that are going to be on the exam. And it'd be really good if you reviewed problem number 3 from homework, set number 4, okay, for example. Or obviously, you don't want to miss that email so that you can do well academically. Okay, so those are some tips for success. I hope you take those to heart and use those to be successful at Baylor. At this point, I would like to give you some additional information and suggestions about potential add-ons to our various degree programs within engineering and computer science. So first up on the list is something that Baylor gets called secondary majors. Okay, sometimes we get asked about double majoring in various fields, and in general, a double major is difficult just because the degree requirements for each individual program are so long. It'd be hard to get out of Baylor in a reasonable time. However, there's a list of secondary majors that you can find on the website, and these are designed to be able to be more doable, okay? And there are certain combinations that make a lot of sense for ECS degrees. For example, on the engineering side, you're already taking 7 math courses starting at Cal 1 and moving your way upwards. And so it only takes 4 more courses to pick up a secondary major in mathematics. Next on the list is minors. Minors are also a topic of interest among incoming students. And there are certain combinations, again, of minors that make a lot of sense. Again, on the engineering side, you take enough mathematics that if you do well in all those courses, make C or above, you end up with a minor in mathematics, okay? So that's not the only minor that's useful, but if you're interested in different types of minors, you should talk to your ECS advisor. Another area where we get a lot of questions has to do with pre-professional tracks like pre-med or pre-law. Of course, these are important programs, especially if you want to go to law school or to medical school. Our engineering major, if you do an engineering major with, for example, a concentration in biomedical, this sets you up perfectly for taking the pre-med courses. We have 15 credit hours built into the curriculum for that particular concentration that lets you plug in the pre-med courses there. It's also common for bioinformatics majors to be interested in pre-med. So if you have questions about these tracks, please see your ECS advisor. We also field a number of questions about the honors program. The honors program at Baylor is, I would describe it as more liberal arts oriented. It's set up to where you need to complete a certain set of courses and do an honors thesis. So if students are interested, I often ask, what is the motivation? And in many cases, we will get the answer that, well, I want to do an honors program so that it will distinguish me in the workplace. It'd be something nice to add to my resume. So you should know that we've talked to employers about that, and the general consensus among employers tends to follow along these lines. The employers are interested in, what did you do for senior design? What kind of internship experience do you have? Did you do some research with a professor on some technical topic? Those types of things tend to show up a little higher on the priority list for most of our employers. So in terms of being distinguished, if you graduate with these challenging degrees with a good GPA, then you will automatically be distinguished. So I wouldn't consider honors just for that sole purpose. However, there's some good reasons to take honors. It's a wonderful experience. If you're interested in sort of a more formal approach towards research and graduate school, this might be something that is of interest to you. Next up on the list is internships. We definitely want to support you in finding an internship. As I just mentioned, employers are looking for that type of experience that you might have on your resume, and that would give you a leg up on finding a job. Okay, so I've already mentioned that we have Tom Brooks and his team that can help you get connected to internships, and we encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity at Baylor. The next thing I have listed here are graduate school joint degree programs. We have those in mechanical, electrical and computer, biomedical, and then there's also a joint degree program where you can do engineering along with an MBA. Okay, so I want to point those out because some students are interested in extending their undergraduate experience and going ahead and picking up that master's degree. Typically what happens here is that there's some shared credit, okay, to get, for example, a Bachelor of or a Master of Science in one of the engineering fields. It typically takes 8 courses, and you get to share 2 courses with your undergraduate degree program. So that makes it a more efficient path towards arriving at that final destination. The next item I'd like to cover in this orientation presentation is the Undergraduate Catalog. You should know the significance of the catalog. The catalog is the rule book. You'll come in under a certain catalog, and that will lay out the program curriculum requirements for you for that catalog. Sometimes it's possible to switch catalog years if you wish to go to some type of curriculum change that you want to follow. But your incoming catalog is what governs the sort of the rules of progress. Okay, some things to look for in the catalog. I would read the beginning section that talks about the different requirements for a Bachelor of Science degree, because those are the degrees that we offer. There is one Bachelor of Arts degree in computer science. You can read that section too if that applies to your degree program. You should also know that that the catalog and on the website there's a published academic calendar. It's important to adhere to that. Sometimes students think there's some flexibility about missing classes in terms of scheduling exams, and in many cases it's very difficult to do that. So you should certainly check the academic calendar before you make travel plans. There's certain rules you should know about also. There's a course repeat policy both for Baylor University and a course repeat policy within the School of Engineering and Computer Science. You want to be aware of that policy. The reason that's important is there's certain, like the general Baylor policy is that you can take a course at most 3 times, all right? So if on the 3rd attempt you still don't pass that course, if in fact it's a required course, that puts an end to the path forward for that particular degree program. So you want to be aware of that. I also want to point you towards the attendance policy. If you read about it, what it says in the catalog is that it's up to individual schools and in many cases individual professors. So typically the warning is check the syllabus of each class that you're taking and make sure you're aware of the attendance policy. There was an old rule at Baylor where everyone had to attend at least 75% of the classes, or else you could get a failing grade in that particular course. That's since been moved to different school policies. You know, when I say schools, there's the School of Engineering and Computer Science, there's the business school. Those types of policies show up in different ways in those various schools, and you need to basically look at the syllabus for each course to be sure you're on the right side of the attendance policy. The other recommendation I have for the catalog is to read the section on the School of Engineering and Computer Science so you're familiar with all the rules there. Okay, next up, you should be aware of progress requirements. These are very important. We don't want you to languish in our degrees, all right? So we have established progress requirements, and the idea here is that hopefully you're in tune and you're focused and called to be in these majors, and if you're not, we want to know about it sooner rather than later so we can transition you to the place where you're called to be. Okay, there's no shame, no judgment in that. There are many cases where students start out in a certain major and end up in a different one. That's sort of a famous thing about college. So the progress requirements on the pre-engineering side are that you need to make a B or better in the first 2 engineering courses, Engineering 1301 and Engineering 1302, and a C or better in the first year math courses. On the computer science side, the progress requirement is you need to make a B or better and CSI 1440, which is the second programming course. And so logic would dictate, if you need a B or better in the second course, hopefully you make a B or better in the first course as well. Okay. The next thing I need to tell you about, hopefully this won't happen to anybody watching the videos here, but there are progress requirements that we enforce through something called academic actions. So the targets are that if your semester GPA falls below a 2.0, the first time that happens, you're subject to academic probation. And academic probation is mainly just a wake-up call, a warning. If it happens again, and these don't have to be in consecutive semesters, but if it happens again, you're subject to academic suspension. Okay, so academic suspension means we would take a time out, you wouldn't be coming to Baylor the next semester or for the full suspension term. And the idea is not meant to be punitive, but to give students a chance to work out a plan and to figure out exactly what they want to do in order to be successful at Baylor. So you need to know about those. I've already told you it's important to check your email because the way academic actions are communicated is using Baylor email. Okay. Next on my list is something called FERPA. FERPA is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act from 1974. So 1974, this act has been around a long time. And this act protects the privacy of student educational records. So what that means is that if friends or family contact professors or advisors or student life professionals and ask about anything related to academics, like is my student going to class? That's an educational record. The students have right to privacy on that. Grades, of course, those are educational records, and students have a right to privacy. It's possible that students can consent to disclosure, but we would need that in writing. Okay, so the other thing I'd like to point out when we talk about FERPA is that FERPA is a one-way restriction. It doesn't preclude friends and family giving information, like we think the student is struggling because of this, that, and the other. It's, that's not a restriction under the FERPA guidelines.